And the best part is that as I'm learning sort of on the job, you get to learn the different challenges that you meet along the way of making a sculptural piece. You know, there's so many different challenges at each stage you have to overcome. And to have that, it's just not in the education system nowadays. It's nowhere. And it wasn't until I got to the point of the course that is known as the personal investigation, where you got to choose what you got to do for that section of the course. Unfortunately, not the whole course, but I decided I wanted to look into Greek mythology, and related to that was sculpture. And so that sort of opened my view from just painting, because I was very, very much into painting. And that was what first piqued my interest into sculpture. You know, I really just want to be able to have it, not necessarily a mainstream income, but as an income that I have a passion for.
Yeah.
You're also working for your parents.
I do.
She's working so hard to achieve it. Yeah, you just don't give up.
Hi everyone. So this is episode 10 of our podcast. And
episode 10.
I know. I don't want to say it's gone really
double
quick,
figures.
because I said that in the last episode. But yeah, we're flying through the summer as well. And lots is going on at the Sculpture School. And we're also joined by a fantastic guest today, our youngest guest. And
He's tiny.
He's got amazing boots on. I normally admire Keira's utility suit, boiler suit. That's the word. That's just so cool. Anyway, let's all just introduce ourselves for anyone who's not watched out or listened to our podcast before. So perhaps we should start with Di today.
Hello, I'm Diane Coates-Sinclair, and I'm a co-founder and director of the Sculpture School, and married to the boss.
And we're actually going to go ladies first today.
Yes,
Sorry, Andy.
that's
So we'll introduce our guests.
Yeah. I'm Keira Gunning, and I am a bursary student and apprentice here.
Yes.
Yeah.
The one and only.
The only.
We've been trying to decide what she actually is.
Yeah.
An experiment.
Quite. I'm having an identity crisis.
Whenever I see you at the Sculpture School, Keira, I just feel that you're able to flit around and do everything. So, I'll come to me last, Andy.
I'm Andrew Sinclair. I'm a professional sculptor. I teach at the Sculpture School. And with my wife, Diane, I'm one of the founding members of the Sculpture School itself.
Fantastic. And I'm Lindsay Bauer, and I'm a creative arts executive at the Sculpture School. So I work in outreach and all kinds of other stuff. But anyway, that's who we all are. And so today we're going to talk a bit about careers and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, let's talk about what we've all been up to recently. Or I think Andy and Di, you've had a really lovely experience over the last sort of day or so.
Yes, actually, we had a telephone call from Carol Hughes, who's a local resident, and she is the wife of the late poet Ted Hughes, and she wondered if we would be interested in his collection of tiger skulls.
Wow!
Which we immediately bit her hand off for those because
No pun intended. Yeah.
And Andy would definitely love a tiger skull.
Wow.
So we went to her house and had a lovely cup of tea and a chat, and she took us into the dining room, and we saw this incredible collection of skulls and artefacts. And well, you can explain more about what was there.
It was like all my Christmases at once, really. It
was amazing.
I love collecting skulls and animal artifacts, really, because to me it's all about the anatomy. It's all about recognizing how things work. And it's become a real passion of mine. I started collecting skulls when we moved down to Devon, actually, which was probably about
11 years ago.
It was 11 years ago, and people have been donating skulls and sort of adding to the collection ever since. And this is just one of those times where the adding to the collection has made it quite an incredible collection. Now it's
an unbelievable gift. It's so valuable to us.
To me, it's a sort of collection of curiosities of things. I mean, some of the stuff that was there was incredible. Apparently, Carol and Ted loved going to auctions and buying curiosities, really. That's what it was all about. And the curiosities became these skulls and various other artefacts from animals that are being collected over the years. What was interesting about it is there is a certain sort of mythology behind it as well, wasn't there? It was some of the teeth are being carved into other things, so there was a kind of like a folklore side to it, really.
There was
which we were talking about the other day with Brian and Wendy, and it is just sort of invading everything. At the moment.
There was a raven's beak, and a crow's beak, sewn together out of animal parchment, really, wasn't it? It was like almost like a skull.
It was a strange thing.
It was very strange.
I don't know what you call it.
Can I just interrupt you for a second? I was just thinking for younger listeners and viewers, and also maybe some other viewers who might not know who Ted Hughes was, and why this is such an important gift to you, both into the sculpture school. And when you told me that you'd been given this, the hairs on the back of my neck stood out because it's such an amazing gift to have.
It's
and
incredible.
The sort of legacy from Ted Hughes. But and I'll add a little bit about him in a minute from what I know about him. But how would you describe him to listeners who don't know who Ted Hughes
I
was?
think you should describe him because you're the one that studied
You've
him.
actually studied.
So your
You've
knowledge is
studied,
much greater than ours, and I think you better
poetry.
put it across much better.
Yeah.
So, like Ted Hughes is, for anyone who loves books, reading poetry, he's like a huge figure in English literature and poetry. He came from Yorkshire. I know lots about him because he formed part of my undergraduate history dissertation. Ted came from Yorkshire with his family. He's a very tall Yorkshireman with a very booming voice. He had a scholarship, if I remember correctly, to go to Cambridge. He came from a working class background, and then ultimately he went to America, and then later on he sort of developed his poetry career. He taught for a while, and then he came to London. Sort of on the way to London, he went back to Cambridge to study. I think he studied a master's, if I'm correct. Founded like a poetry sort of group. Then he went to London. He was based in Primrose Hill, and again formed another sort of poetry group. Got married, and then ultimately he came down to Devon. So where Diane and Andy went to is where Ted wrote. He's not alive anymore, but he wrote some of his most famous poems. And Ted Hughes Estate is huge now because he's just such a stalwart of English poetry and literature. He was made poet laureate, and sorry, I need to wrap this bit up.
You are the best person to describe.
He had such a fascinating life, and he absolutely loved the outdoors. He was particularly keen on fishing. Yeah, it completely fits that he collected lots of skulls and curiosities, and he wrote lots about the crow, lots of poems about the crow and other animals, and he mentions skulls in letters and things that I've read of his. And Carol Hughes is his second wife, and I met her once, and she was absolutely lovely. So the whole experience is fascinating, and to think that you have some of these items that Ted has found and also held and looked after so carefully that are very precious. That's incredible.
I feel incredibly honoured, but it is a heritage, and I love this idea of things being passed on to people that really love the ownership, the whole atmosphere that surrounds them. It's a lovely thing to happen. Otherwise, they get dispersed and lost.
So we're going to create a particular area where we can display them in the school. And obviously we will highlight the fact that it's been gifted to us by the Ted Hughes Estate. And it's such an honour, actually, isn't it?
Massive! I think it's just so lovely that she thought of us, and she'd visited the studio, seen my collection of skulls.
Okay.
Which has grown exponentially lately anyway, because a vet whose wife was studying with us, or partner, noticed that we had skulls, and his father had been a vet at Regent's Park Zoo, I think.
London Zoo.
London Zoo.
Okay.
And he'd acquired all these skulls from his job there.
So
we have a huge collection now, which I love.
Yeah.
I just love
It's
looking. I love
fantastic.
showing the students because it's the design behind everything that we do. So to me, it couldn't be a more lovely gift.
No, that I just think it's incredible. And I think also for anyone listening to this that's maybe not a sculptor, but loves writing, loves poetry, is interested in English, like English teachers and so on. This is like such a lovely opportunity to come to the sculpture school and see something a collection that belonged to Ted Hughes and get up close and feel that inspiration that he felt that inspired him to write some of his short stories and poems. That's something quite special.
I think we could ask Carol to come over and read some poetry at the studio when we do a private view.
That would be,
really nice.
That would be incredible. I know the last time I saw her, she was going to Westminster Abbey because she was going to read some of Ted's poetry there as part of a dedication and a memorial to Ted. So it just shows, and the Abbey was packed. So it just shows the kind of appeal and draw that Ted Hughes and his, beautiful poetry and writing still has to sort of generations. Because I think it must be about maybe 20 years or so since Ted died.
I think she said it was 29.
Yeah. That sounds right. But he still has this enormous draw and will go on to have, because he's almost
he's
sort of
part of our literary history, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got like a mythology associated with him now. But incredible. So
amazing.
I'm excited. I'm very excited to see this collection myself now. And I'm going to invite myself to Carol's reading if she'll very kindly do one. But anyway, let's talk about other things that have been going on at the sculpture school. And we're thinking of kind of careers and obviously we've got Keira here and your apprenticeship. So who would like to kick us off today about where you can go with a career in sculpture and how you get to that point?
Well, if I start, darling, because I just think that it would be a nice way of introducing you, really, rather than putting the onus on you. But it really is about a belief that I've had for a long time now about what we were talking about, passing things on, actually, so that the heritage stays alive and vibrant generation after generation. And to me, it's vital that I pass on the knowledge that I have to young people, not older people who want a hobby in their dotage.
Well, not just those people.
Well, yes, not just that. And Keira came out of the blue, actually. We've not had an easy year, really. So looking for somebody to help in the studio and things was difficult. And well, you wrote us a letter, didn't you?
I did.
Yes, out of the blue.
Yeah, on a random Tuesday.
I love that you remember the date.
Don't quote me on that.
And well, you came around to the studio to talk to us.
I did.
You've got a very good portfolio. And I don't know, some things are just meant to happen, I think, sometimes, because there was no way we were looking. There's no way that we can do anything at the moment. And but we've now sort of worked out a kind of reciprocal arrangements. And I what we'd call you, I think, is it's like a kind of bursary mixed with an apprenticeship, because apprenticeships, I think, is where it's at when it comes to art. Not degrees. An apprenticeship is something where you learn from the shop floor upwards, doing the menial tasks that you were doing this morning, like cleaning my brushes for me, which I still feel rather guilty about, to be quite honest. But it is a
I'm
lovely
used
thing.
to it.
Just thinking historically, though, that's how artists and sculptors used to train, wasn't it? You'd learn on the job as an apprentice, and who better to learn from than like a master sculptor or a master artist. And Andy is our modern day.
And Andy, you're going to say that.
Andy is our modern day Raphael. Or Bernini. I think that's fascinating. Also, I was just thinking of it's always worth, because I didn't know, Keira, how you got to know Andy and Di. There's always worth like writing a letter. I was thinking of some actors and actresses like Carrie Mulligan wrote to Julian Fellows, who wrote Downton Abbey. She just wrote out of the blue, and then she got now she's a famous Hollywood actor. And then also Jodie Comer, she wrote to Stephen Graham, the actor, and he helped her before she got into acting, he helped her kind of like find the ropes. And so, and that was just like a random letter. So again, it's always like to anyone listening, be inspired.
It's always worth a shot. Yeah, because you never know.
Yeah, just go for it.
That you could get that lucky break.
Tell them how you found out.
Yeah.
So, funnily enough, I don't live very far at all, do I? About 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
And despite them being right on my doorstep, I hadn't really processed that they were even there. I'd seen the sign and I'd sort of, in passing had gone, oh, there's a sculpture school there, but I hadn't absorbed really in my brain. And it wasn't until after I'd finished my A-levels that I realised I didn't have anywhere to go. I was considering university, but I wasn't very academically inclined naturally. And I tend to look for things that I tend to learn better with things that are hands-on. So when I reached out to them, it was kind of in the hopes that they would be able to give me the opportunity to work with them during my education so that I could learn on the job, hence the apprenticeship. And to have that so near and so close, that type of education that's so niche and important, it's such a gift. It really is such a gift. And I've had the most fantastic time. I really, really have. And I've learned so much. And the best part is that as I'm learning sort of on the job, you get to learn the different challenges that you meet along the way of making a sculptural piece. There's so many different parts that, different challenges at each stage you have to overcome and figure out ways to work around or work through. And to have that, it's just not in the education system nowadays. It's nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. They just don't teach it.
Because we've talked about this before, that even if you go to university and study like a fine arts degree or something, you're quite often left alone to your own devices when it comes to sculpture, aren't you?
And it's not about business. It's all theory and ideas.
You can't teach yourself to be a sculptor. It's not. It's just too much. And there is no information out there to glean, so it's very difficult to do. I'm a big believer in serendipity, actually, and chance things happening. Just to explain how you did find out about us, because I think it's quite an interesting little story.
So essentially, when I, did find out about you, it was through my nan, actually. And
was it?
She'd driven past again, because we tend to drive into Winkley. And she came back and she went, Keira, you really, really ought to do something with your life.
I mean, Nan would say
you
that,
ought to do something with your life.
Because after all, you were 18.
Exactly.
So,
you need to know everything.
And, you're past your limit already. Past your prime.
On a decline.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do something with yourself. And she sort of brought it up in passing. Oh, what about this? What about that? What about that sculpture school place? And something in my brain went, what about that sculpture school place?
Yeah, cool.
So I thought, it wouldn't hurt just to drop an email, just to ask, They're not going anywhere. So why not, And it was fantastic. I dropped the email and they offered for me to come in. And it was lovely. They were so welcoming. And I'm so glad that Andy also figured out that I was not, in fact, an accountant. That was the first thing you asked when I came in, is if I was the accountant.
Maths? Yeah. Just quickly say we don't want to put anyone off who's an accountant.
No, absolutely not.
No.
But I was slightly terrified because I thought, no, I'm not good at numbers.
What about the hairdresser?
Wasn't the hairdresser?
Oh yes, and Paula. My old boss at the hairdressers, she also knew Andy. She used to cut your hair.
Yes.
And when I spoke to them about it, they said, yes, absolutely, go for it.
Right.
Because I'd mentioned I'd been interested and thinking about moving on to there for a little while. And it was quite a big jump because I worked at that hair salon for about 3 years and I was very close with the people there. So to have Paula go, yes, these people are lovely. I've met them before.
Yeah.
Go for it it helped to solidify it for me. It really did.
So, Keira, can I just quickly ask you, so were you did you have like a few career ideas in mind, or were you just kind of testing the water for different things, or what made you think of like sculpture? Have you always been really good at art or?
I would say I've always been very, very interested in art. It's kind of sort of what I've done since I was very little. I always drew, I always played with Play-Doh, I always painted. And growing up, it was the one solid constant in my life that I was very good at, or good enough at least in school.
Sounds like all of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, quite. I think it is just something that happens
something
to...
you just always do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And there were very few other subjects I really felt such an affinity with. And doing the art, I ended up doing an art A-level, finally.
What was that like? Because sometimes some students who study like art at A-level, they lose their love of art because it's quite formulaic, isn't it? Because you have to do certain things to meet the exam board requirements, and then you sort of can end up sometimes losing the love of art. How did you find it?
Yeah, there were certain parts of it where I certainly felt like I was being pushed down a route where I didn't naturally want to go, where I had to explore this certain artist I wasn't incredibly interested in, or not in that type of style. And it wasn't until I got to the point of the course that is known as the personal investigation, where you got to choose what you got to do for that section of the course. Unfortunately, not the whole course, but for that part. I decided I wanted to look into Greek mythology.
Okay.
And related to that was sculpture. And so that sort of opened my view from just painting, because I was very, very much into painting, into more of like a hands-on approach to creating a piece of art. And that was what first piqued my interest into sculpture. And I gave it a go, very amateur attempt for one of my final pieces. And I really, really loved it. I thought it was great. As much as I look back on that piece now and I go, ooh.
That's because you're learning.
Yeah, exactly. But at the time, I was so pleased with it. And
you should be too,
really
actually,
did.
because when you sent the images through of your work, we both said, she's only 9 to 18.
Yeah.
These are amazing for someone this age. So
thank you.
It is all about potential.
It is about potential.
You can't come to this, to any educational institute and be brilliant to start with. That comes from it.
Exactly.
But they were, but they were very, very high standards.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's like having the interest in it, and then like the desire to learn, and then being in that setting where you're encouraged to learn, and then sort of the alchemy of all of those aspects coming together.
Exactly.
You can create some magic, can't you? Going back to like the magic of Ted Hughes.
We've yet to test her on the anatomy yet, though.
I'm studying. I am studying.
No. So how long ago was that, Keira? And
this was last...
Must be a year.
Yeah, last September-ish.
Really
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nearly.
So, and what kind of like aspects have you learned? Is there anything that you particularly enjoy doing, or?
So far, I think I've only done one of the human figurative courses. But that one I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I've always been very interested in human anatomy, and I just really like the sense of human expression. I mean, you had Lucy on the podcast a little while ago, and she's very much into the emotion that animals give. And I love that as well, but I'm also very much interested in the type of emotion that can be evoked through human expression. So doing the figurative course and being able to actually see how it, anatomy-wise, how it came together was brilliant. And I'm really looking forward to the next one, because I really want to be able to build that foundation where you understand how it all comes together, and then be able to add in that artistic element later and that feeling to the piece.
So like the sacral dimples, all those little elements that we've talked about before.
Quite.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. What kind of, if I can go back a little bit as well, what made you, so you said that, when you were for your art A level, you're looking at sort of Greek, Greek, was it Greek mythology?
Yes, it was,
And then like, how's that all sort of translated into like coming to the sculpture school, working with Diane, Andy, and I'm sure you've done some Greek inspired sculpture.
Socrates in the garden.
Yeah, that's right. I know I've seen some. I was thinking of the rhino, like Dura's rhino, but
not so Greek.
Not so Greek, no. But you've got all bases covered, the Renaissance, the ancient Greeks, So you wrote the letter to Diane, Andy.
I did.
And then you came to visit. And then sort of like, are you just in the school most days now and help it? I know I've seen you working with, like, is it pink resin or what?
Rubber.
Just maybe just you could tell listeners a few of the different things you've had a go at or learn how to do since you've been at the sculpture school.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that I do is, well, I help with some of the mould making, of course, and the pink rubber. Very pretty pink rubber. But I also mostly help with making tools. Okay. So a lot of the sculpting blades I help to make out of wood. So they're all handmade.
You're on a learning curve at the moment, but from my point of view,
I'm sort of doing everything.
She's been a very quick learner. So she's now putting rubber onto moulds that are mine, which I wouldn't normally allow anybody else to do.
Yeah.
So that's...
I'm honoured.
Yeah, you are honoured. And, but you're also doing a lot of other things. And you just mentioned the tools as a kind of sideline.
Yeah.
I have taught for 15 years, 20 years, and I have never managed to get anyone to make any of the sculpture tools because they're difficult to make, apart from Keira, who's picked it up almost as if it was natural. And she doesn't quite realise how unusual that is, actually, to be able to maintain the shapes that is essential to the way that they work is incredible. So you are doing very well there.
Thank you.
And for me, it just takes that weight off my shoulders because the only person that could make them was me.
Yeah.
So I haven't got time to make all those sculpting blades as well as everything else.
Yeah.
So it's given me a chance to breathe.
Can I just ask you all about, because we just mentioned there briefly about sort of making moulds and sort of casting and things, because we don't cast at the sculpture school, do we? Or we don't make bronzes. So can you just talk through what we do at the sculpture school? And then, because, when I mentioned in our last episode, and I talked about Degas and how he left some sculptures, like wax and clay sculptures of ballerinas and other figures in his studio, which his family found after he died. And then they used those models to make bronze sculptures from. So for people listening who aren't familiar with this process, how do you go from a clay model to a bronze or bronze resin model? And how does that connect with what you've just been talking about moulding, casting, making moulds?
It's comparatively unusual for sculptors to make their own moulds.
Okay.
But there are some sculptors out there that do it. My original training back in the 1990s was all about moulding and casting. So it was very much a technical training. And that's where I learned all of the skills that I need to do. And for some reason, and I think you're probably the same, is that I absolutely love making moulds. So it's the way of taking the clay that you've just made, which is impermanent, and making it into something that is permanent, which is a relief when it happens because the clay work is so delicate. I wanted to bring in a sculpture today of the thing I'm working on at the moment, but there's absolutely no way he would have survived the journey here. And it would have got so damaged, I'd have had to have almost started again. So the clay work itself is incredibly delicate. And to be able to take that clay work and immediately make it into a safe resin piece, which is what I specialized in, because that's what the studio that I used to work in did. So you're getting very similar training to me. It becomes an essential skill that allows you as a sculptor to work much faster. So I want you to learn it so that you can do what I do, which is make something, cut it into pieces so that you are not making something too complex. It's all worked out. And then you can do it immediately, because if you are relying on another moulder and caster outside of your business, you're relying on their time schedules, which is at least these days 8 to 12 weeks before you get a cast back. And it's very expensive.
Yes.
So, and most of them aren't really well trained.
Yeah.
So they're not making good moulds. And that's the big problem with all of this, is that you're not getting good quality moulding that is helping the artist. So when I was doing it as an independent moulder and caster, I really wanted to help the artists. So it was all about making their journey and their requirements easy. And now I don't do that anymore, but I do it for myself.
Yes.
And I want to teach it to the students that come through the studio.
The other thing we were saying on a car journey earlier was the fact that you're so experienced in moulding and casting is when you're sculpting yourself, you're designing the armature ahead of time, thinking about how you're going to mould and cast it.
Okay.
And that's a huge advantage because other people who don't have that experience or that skill would create something that is actually very difficult to mould.
Right, okay.
And can create problems for the moulding and casting people. So Andy's got that advantage of thinking ahead and planning it into the design of the sculpture.
Again, for listeners who are unfamiliar, so with this whole process, so you make your clay figure and you use your armature, don't you, to make that? And then once you've got your clay figure, is that when you make the mould? And then what happens after you've made the mould?
The clay is taken over to the workshop and it is covered in silicone rubber. That dries. Then you put on these shims, which is a process that I created back in the early 2000s, actually. It's called Plastishim. And it's a vacuum-formed plastic sheet, basically, that you put around the sculpture. So if you're imagining in its simplest form 2 halves of an Easter egg, it's something that comes apart easily, so that you can create. It makes a dividing wall, so that you can get into the negative space of the original sculpture.
Okay.
It's difficult to describe here, but what I want to do is just give you a sort of overall view. That is then through various processes covered in more rubber, so that it becomes about 5 millimeters thick over the whole sculpture. Then we put fiberglass jackets on top to make sure that when the rubber comes off, it doesn't flop. It maintains the integrity of the shape. And once that's done, it's all cleaned up. You're ready to make a cast into that in whatever material you want to make it in. So you could do a wax into that, which would be molten wax. You could do plaster into it. You could do resin into it. You could do cement fondue, all sorts of different casting materials, really. But we specialize in resins because, to me, resin is the next best thing to bronze because it can go outside. If you've made it properly, it doesn't rot. It's incredibly durable. It's very quick drying and very, very tough.
And also, they were a huge part of your working with the cruise line industry, wasn't it? Isn't it? They rarely had a bronze sculpture on board ship, but they had,
because of the weight.
But they had resin sculptures everywhere on climbing walls and hanging from ceilings and all sorts of things.
The cruise line industry became my bread and butter work. And it has been for 30 years.
Yes, it has.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about it. So what kind of sort of other careers? So obviously Keira's at the sculpture school.
With Keira in mind.
And helping out in an apprenticeship capacity. Andy, what kind of careers can people go into when they come and sculpt? And again, we just should say that you can learn to sculpt at the sculpture school without any art experience, without, with at any age. At the sculpture school, the education there is open for everybody, isn't it? It's accessible for everyone. There's no barriers at all. But if someone wants to come to the sculpture school, and some people come and do it as a hobby, some people do it as therapy, some people come and learn with us though because they actually want to have a career that's going to bring in a wage. So where can you take the skills and education that you get at the sculpture school? Where can you take it in terms of different careers?
The whole course is career orientated, so that we're informing people in sculpture to the point where they can run or begin to run a career after the first year. That's the idea behind it. So we teach the business side of it as well. There are four main ways of earning a living through sculpture. You can earn a living through working through galleries, which is the most obvious, I'd say. People tend to think of that as an obvious route. And if you're young and you set yourself up with a certain style, for example, and you've got a good gallery that supports you, you can create a following that will change your life. It becomes a career. And I can think of quite a few sculptors that I know that have done that and been incredibly successful. I was thinking of Geoffrey Daswood, for example, who's become the bird expert sculptor and has carved out an incredible career, literally, for himself. So there's definitely that possibility. You can work in the gift industry. The gift industry is an interesting one. A lot of my peers have worked in the gift industry. So they have been making things like sculptures for ladro, for example, where they're ornaments made in bone china and things like that. So the originals have to be made. There's chocolates that I've made in the past, actually, that have been in the shape of animals. They all have to be sculpted first. And they tend to work a lot in things that you see for sale in craft fairs. Green Men, for example, that we brought up earlier in the podcast.
And there are also those resin plaques that are copies of sort of romantic scenes that are done in a stone resin, aren't they?
Yeah, all of them.
There are quite a few businesses that create those sorts of things, but they have to be sculpted.
The originals have to be sculpted before the multiple
before they go into
casts
reproduction.
I guess also you've got teaching, haven't you? Like
teaching, definitely, yes. But I was thinking of the four major career paths that you can take where you could make a career out of it. The next one is the film industry, of course, which I have mixed feelings about, actually.
Okay.
I think most of the world's top sculptors work in the film industry. They certainly were 5 years ago. Things have changed quite radically in the film industry just recently, with strikes and so on going on, and the lockdown having a massive effect on.
But sculptors are used to make
the
props,
originals,
aren't they? And they're not just creating sculptures; they're creating guns or spy equipment or anything. That's what they're making.
It's a great fun world to be in. I had a taste of it. I could never really get my foot in the door because I never had friends within the film industry that could give me an opening and an opportunity. And at the time, I found that incredibly frustrating. But with the benefit of hindsight, it guided me into a career that I absolutely love now. And I wouldn't have got it through the film industry.
Andy, you mentioned on a previous podcast as well about, I think it was another sculptor or maybe it wasn't a particular sculptor, but you sort of made the link between Madame Tussauds. So is that the kind, when you're saying about props so is that kind of like another similar route?
Well, Madame Tussauds is a fantastic place to learn to sculpt. They really teach, and they teach incredibly well. There's so much technique involved in what they do to make those wax casts. They actually have to be life size. And when I do a life size, I measure from a person. It is life size. But by the time the clay is shrunk, the rubber shrunk, the fiberglass is shrunk, then you put the material in to make a cast, that shrinks.
Okay.
You've got about a 12% shrinkage. It's quite significant.
So you've got to really factor all of those aspects.
Whereas Madame Tussauds have to overcome all those problems, which they do brilliantly.
Yeah.
And they teach a process that I think is incredibly valuable. And they play a big part in this. I've not had much to do with them because, a bit like the film industry, I never could get a foot in the door. And at the time, it's what I wanted. And when you look back on it, I got what I needed. I didn't get what I wanted.
That's really interesting.
And it is fascinating. So things work out for the best. They always do, I think. But Madame Tussauds is definitely an opening, but they only take on so many artists per generation. It's not easy if they're taking them on per year, it's per generation. And the fourth way of making an income through sculpture is what I do, actually, which is commission work. And I love commission work because you get so many different things that I wouldn't have thought of, to be quite honest. So the the work that I've done through the cruise line industry, which has been a bit like the film industry work, really. Very, very tight deadlines, very specific requirements. And you've got to take into account when you're designing all these things, the movement of the ship, the vibration of the engine, the materials that you have to make it from that can withstand minus 40 to plus 40 degrees centigrade. So all those factors have to be taken into account, plus other skills that come into it as well, like painting. So a lot of the sculptures are painted. Well, that's fantastic, but it's not my remit to do that. So I work with a really talented painter who is started out spraying cars.
Right, okay.
And so he has all the latest technology.
Yeah.
He's like a font of
So
information.
for the divers that we did for the Icon of the Seas, he created a spectacular gold effect on the costumes. Didn't he?
Absolutely beautiful.
Really superb. And also the Chinese warrior, the Spode warrior that we did. And that was not just painting and lacquer. He was using it was hydro dipped, wasn't it? So they actually put a transfer of a Spode pattern onto the sculpture, and the sculpture was dipped in this big tank.
They put it onto the surface of the water, and then the sculpture is lowered, which was quite funny because it took 7 men to push the sculpture down because it was so buoyant. So they have to push it under the water, but it was too much for one. You could have stood on the sculpture, it still wouldn't have sunk.
I should just say to listeners that you can actually see that sculpture at the Sculpture Studio, and it is really unlike anything you'll have ever seen before.
And I would like to point out that Di sculpted that.
I
So we do work as a team.
Because Di is very modest in her abilities, but you are brilliant. You're also a sculptor and an artist in your own right, aren't you? So
painter,
that's incredible. So we've just touched very briefly on some cruise commissions. Then can we maybe unpack that a little bit more? So Di, you just mentioned the last cruise commission that Andy got, and do you want to tell us about that? And isn't it for the world's biggest cruise liner so far?
The world's biggest cruise liner that was launched, I think it was last year or the year before. And Andy was commissioned to do 3 divers from different decks.
Okay.
And the one on the highest deck is standing looking over the edge. The second one is preparing to dive, and then the third one is in a swallow dive, isn't she? And they are really awesome. They look it's not Art Deco, is it? But they're stylized. Very stylized figures, but they're painted and lacquered, and they've got they've got the frilly.
They're flowers on a swimming
cap. Yeah, like 1930s sort of vintage.
To them. And it was a very difficult contract, which we probably won't discuss now. But they were spectacular when they actually went and launched the ship. They were featured in all the promotional material, weren't they? On videos, they were on the news. They went everywhere, didn't they?
Yes.
How did you? So, what was the process of? So, obviously, you were given a commission. Did you interpret the commission that you were given, Andy, or was it were you given a very specific set of instructions? How did it?
You're given a specific set of instructions, but with artistic license. So I take those instructions and produce drawings. Then those drawings go backwards and forwards endlessly, being reassessed and looked at. And eventually, about 3 weeks before the thing's supposed to be delivered, you get the go ahead.
Right, okay.
And that's where the timing comes in.
The stress comes in. And in terms of, because I know, Di, you got involved with some of the preliminary sketches as well, didn't you? Is that right? Was it for that one?
Actually, not so much for that. I think they were put together more on Photoshop.
Okay.
A lot of the other commissions have started out with me doing a freehand sketch and then them being interpreted photographically later. And the one commission that's just come up, proposal that's just come up, I did some drawings, but that was a really quick sketch.
And
it's still good.
And I know,
shut up.
Di, I think you mentioned earlier that with some of the kind of when you're putting together these sort of sketches, and Andy, do you use like freehand, like your own sketching, and a bit of like tech input as well, or do you sort of?
It's a mixture of both, isn't it? I just do freehand drawings, and then as an initial idea. I mean, when I first started working for you, I did all those beautiful drawings of the trapeze artists, and they were Erte. They were taken from the designer Erte in that style, and so I did loads of those and did monkeys and all sorts of.
Yeah, no, it was great. That's when Di came to work at the studio. Really, gradually took over.
Gradually became your wife. How did that happen?
Gradually became my wife. Yeah. I don't know
Great
how that
muscles. Marry me. That's an easy chat-out line. I'll try that one.
I see my etchings.
So was that your last big sort of cruise commission? So that was last year. So
it's a couple of years ago now, wasn't it? Yeah.
And what's involved in terms of like practically, sort of completing one of those commissions? Like how many hours in the studio are you working, Andy? Were you having to do weekends and things, or do you keep?
I try not to work weekends at all. Actually, I keep weekends sacrosanct because although the job is fantastic, and you must feel the same thing. You're highly inspired, but you get extremely tired as well because you're working at least 9 hours a day, particularly when there's a big contract on. And this is where you come in because these big contracts are fantastic training grounds. So I literally can't do it all. So Keira comes in and she begins to learn the ropes enough for me to trust her to be able to move on.
Well, actually, on the last contract last commission for the Queen and Prince Philip, you did a lot of work on that.
Yes.
So
you and I did most of the
beginning,
molds.
And you did all the moulding and casting.
Yes.
Which was a real baptism of fire, actually, on one.
Well, it is, and it's not easy working. I have to say, it's not easy working with me on that kind of thing because it's stressful. And Keira is under quite a bit of. How do you feel?
Yeah.
Honestly, actually, all I can say then is don't tell the truth.
You can tell me secretly later.
No. No, honestly, it's fine.
Yeah.
Really, really, really fine. Even if the contract is busy and stressful, Andy is a very, very good teacher and very calm most of the time. But really, he is. And whenever we are doing a big piece or if we are working on the molds and it's very, tight on time and there's a big time constraint, then he's always clear with what needs to be done. And it helps me because being in a situation where it's got to be done, otherwise we're going to run out of time or the rubber's going to go off or the resin's going to set. It really forces you to learn. It really gets you on the job and you have to be switched on. You have to be doing it properly so that you can do it correctly. And I think it's a great way to learn that way in that sort of deep end of
it is learning from the shop floor.
Yeah, exactly.
It is in the real world.
And under someone who has the experience of probably when it's gone wrong in the past of what not to do. And he can warn me against those things before I do them.
And also when things do go wrong, things do go wrong. There's nothing you can do.
How it is.
And it is just how it is. Yeah. So when things go wrong, we talk about it.
It's a learning curve.
And there's very little that can go wrong now that we can't fix. There are one or two things that you can't do. But, on the whole, we all make mistakes. Yeah. Everybody does. One of the worst is forgetting to put hardener in the resin.
Oh, yeah.
And then you cast the whole thing and it's never going to go off because there's no catalyst in it. And somebody's, in your career, you're going to do that at some point or another. Yeah. Maybe more than once.
Yeah.
Thinking of my own career, It's horrible. And the best learning curve from that is you've got to clean the mold afterwards.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And you don't want to do that.
It's a massive,
exactly.
sticky, gloopy
Certainly
mess.
teaches you a lesson.
It does teach you a lesson. But one of the other factors we bring into this that is important for Keira and for the other students, actually, is to get them teaching as quickly as possible. Because there's no quicker way of learning yourself than teaching others. And I think throughout my whole teaching career, since Di and I had that conversation in the pub 15 odd years ago, that the biggest recipient of all that teaching has been me. And what I've learned over that time, you're going to be doing the same. We have another student in at the moment. She's going to be doing the same in a few months' time. She doesn't know it yet. But, and Lucy now teaches as well that we had on the podcast last time, actually, or the time before.
I think when you teach as well, it helps you to become aware or to stay sort of grounded in some of the issues that new students face. And you're not so removed from learning yourself, are you, that you can't put yourself in their shoes and kind of understand some of them.
Well, you're just out of their shoes, actually.
Yeah,
So it's quite daunting, isn't it?
It's
baby shoes.
I just took my slippers off and I'm in big boots.
Yeah, it's really good because then you're empathetic to that and then you're approachable, which is so important when you're learning anything. It doesn't matter what subject it is, but especially like in sculpture where you need to feel you can ask questions. And like you were saying, Keira, you're dealing with materials that have certain, setting times and so on. So you need to be able to ask if you're unsure. And I think, teaching when you're relatively new to learning it yourself, especially at that point, you're in that zone, aren't you? Of understanding.
And also being an apprentice with us is that Keira is using materials that if she was at college, she wouldn't be allowed to use them.
Okay.
Because of all the health and safety things that are involved. She's actually learning in a working studio where we're using resins and things. So there's all the PPE and all that kind of stuff that you have to be aware of and know about. That it doesn't get taught, does it, at college?
No, and because there's so few people, we don't have the volume that universities have to deal with.
No.
So
one person
we can
is
afford,
a lot easier to train.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can afford to train people in a very hands-on way. So you're getting a lot of personal time with me as the tutor, but also the other students there as well. So mixing with other like-minded people who are going through the same experience.
Because I was just going to say as well, like at the sculpture studio, for anyone that would like to come and do a course, or anyone who's just interested in sort of like what a normal day is like, it's pretty much 9 to 5, isn't it? I know, like
8 till 5.
I know, like quite often you're in the office later, but also, so you have like a lunch break, don't you? Sort of like, what sort of time do you have your lunch break?
It's very rigid.
Oh,
because we have a
taskmaster. And
rules are rules.
No. Well, it's good to have structure, though, isn't it? When you've got to be, when you're a creative person, because I feel like you can go possibly the other way, can't you?
Well,
it can be like super bohemian and then have like a long leisurely like boozy lunch and then just like roll over somewhere and not get anything achieved. So I think it is really good to have structure. And you have like a coffee break in the morning, don't you?
Have
a coffee break,
10:30 coffee break
in the afternoon,
and then 1 o'clock lunch break, and usually tea at 3:30. It is regular, but those are very important parts of the day as well, actually, because we have
socially
great conversations around the ridiculous conversations
about death.
I think
about death.
I think Lucy brought this point out as well. Maybe it was Lucy or someone else. That actually, when you're sculpting, when you're working, and obviously, Keira, you and Andy have been working quite a lot together, but sometimes you can be working by yourself and it can be quite lonely, can't it? You're sort of, or maybe a little bit isolated. So it's really important to have those times where you congregate and catch up with other students at the sculpture school, or other people that have just popped in, and sort of have that interchange of encouragement and a bit of banter, and then you can sort of go back to your sculptures feeling refreshed and with sort of renewed vigor. Yeah, because we've got quite a variety of different people at the sculpture school now, haven't we?
We have actually,
We have. And one of the things we're doing at the moment is actually making more tools. So one key tool that you simply can't buy anymore are proportional calipers.
They look beautiful.
And Steve, who was a jeweler, who's now moved into sculpture, he needs those proportional calipers because it means that you're measuring directly from something that is small, and those calipers will give you the reading of whatever you're going to enlarge it by. So there's been 2 prototypes that I created in wood, and they're lovely. They look beautiful, but if you drop them on the floor, they shatter, and that's not a good idea. So Steve decided he was going to make a pair like that in aluminium. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. I have got a bit of time. So he and I have been going through the process of making these tools, which is quite complex, actually, because you've got to be able to use a table router with aluminium cutting blades and all the stuff that I learnt when I was a cabinet maker, in actual fact. So all of that second, is sort of first knowledge to me. So all of these past careers that I've had are amalgamating now to create something that's really fascinating. And for the fact that students now are making complex tools, I mean, you're making beautiful wooden tools at the moment, but Keira would easily be able to move into making these much more complex tools. And I was just reading the other day a quote from Michelangelo about tool making, and he thought that anybody that didn't make their own tools wasn't a craftsman. Because in those days you had to make your own tools. There was no alternative. These days, unfortunately, the tools are just disappearing and nobody's using them anymore. So the actual sculpting blades, the wooden ones, they don't sell brilliantly because most sculptors don't use them anymore because they're just not using traditional methods. And I'm not decrying that. I don't think there's a problem with that, but it's just a fact of life. And but for those that do need them, they're not there anymore, and that's tragic.
Which is again,
apart from on our website.
Yeah, but that's why it's so.
Shop now.
That's why it's so important to talk about. That's why it's so important to talk about these things because it makes it accessible for anyone who does. He wants to sculpt using a proper tool rather than like a stick or something. And like if it's not known about, then people won't come and find the tools, will they? But by us telling everybody about the tools that you create that people can buy, and also keeping those, it helps to keep those skills alive in a sort of more precise way. Keira, do you have any ideas like what you want to do with everything you're learning so far?
Or I was just going to ask that.
Yeah,
it's a big question.
You don't have to answer that in one go.
Well, I think I'd like to have the ability to be able to create like my own pieces. And I'm not particularly too certain, but I like the idea of the gallery route. I like the idea of getting some work in some galleries if possible. I really just want to be able to have it as sort of not necessarily a mainstream income, but as an income that I have a passion for. Like something that I can make money off of, but it's something that I'm doing out of a lot of love in my heart, something that I'm really genuinely passionate about, and hopefully that can be the case. But it's difficult to sort of visualize it in a very clear view at the moment. And I like to. It is exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm trying more to focus on the present, not worry about the future.
It is that whole thing of enjoy the process, isn't it? Enjoy the journey.
That's what I'm trying
to
do.
We've said about this before, that we're always, like as human beings, we're always looking to the end result. When we've achieved this, when we've done this, when we can do this, then we'll be happy.
We're always looking at what's next. And never enjoying with what we have.
What we do, and the route to getting to somewhere, which is sometimes fraught with challenges or obstacles to overcome, but actually that's part of the enjoyment, isn't it? Because you get the kicks out of when you are successful in overcoming a difficulty. No, that's brilliant. It's really inspiring, I think, for all kinds of listeners to hear someone like you who've just you had an idea, you've been inspired, and then you've written a letter, and look at you now, you're like learning on the job?
A little bit more that I'd like to say, just as a background with Keira that we haven't mentioned, is that you're also working for your parents.
I do.
So she is working with us. She's paying for it by working for her parents. And so she is, well, you're working nearly 7 days a week, actually.
I have no downtime.
No.
I never relax.
No.
You look good on it, though.
But it's important to put this across because she's working really hard to achieve her dream.
Yeah.
And I take my hat off to anybody that does that, because I'm happy to put in my skill and expertise. But if somebody runs with it like you are, it's fantastic for me. You can see it paying off. In the next 2 to 3 years, you'll become really good. And that will give you a lifetime skill, whatever you do with it. It's up to you. I've got no expectations from you at all, because it is about passing on those skills, and your life is your life.
Exactly. And I have the same passion for those skills. So as you said, they're life skills. They're things that I can keep forever, you know. This is why I'm so pleased to be here and to be doing this.
But what I'm saying is that she's working so hard to achieve it. And that's the important thing that I want to get across in this podcast, really. It's about determination and tenacity. And it's that tenacity that gets you everywhere.
So persevering.
Yeah, you just don't give up.
I think, thinking about Lucy, who was on our podcast a couple of episodes ago, and who's now doing she's a relatively new sculptor, but she's having a lot of success at the moment, exhibiting in different parts of the UK and winning awards. And, she's a little bit older than you are. And then there's you sort of learning at the age of 18, 19. And it's like, there is no age limit to this, is there? No. Like, if you have the passion and desire.
And the determination.
Yeah, and determination.
Working very hard, like Keira is. And you make your own luck.
To
an extent. If you
absolutely
you work.
Yes. You've got to be
focused.
The harder
you work, the luckier you become.
Ish. By a little bit.
I'm not bitter, but
yes, not speaking from experience, but.
You've won awards. No, I think it's just like, this is such an accessible, enjoyable, fascinating career, passion, hobby for anyone who's interested, and you can take it in whatever direction you want to. We're probably coming towards the end of our podcast, but
are we? Blimey, that's great.
We haven't talked about that yet.
No, I was just going to say that was you read my mind.
Got to work on our time management.
No, also, we've got a question to answer as well, which Andy has been thinking of the answer to during the podcast. But Di, can you, or Andy, or both of you, can you tell us a little bit about the sculpture behind Andy today?
This is one of my sculptures, and the reason I brought it in is because it's a portrait, and portraits are what I originally thought I'd be able to make a career doing sculpture portraits. You can't do that as a career, but it's what a portrait is basically the face with the shoulders coming down to just about halfway down the breastbone.
Okay.
And that's how portrait sculptures have been portrayed forever. And what I brought this in because it's about using your imagination, taking something that is so accepted for the design that it comes, which is just the head and shoulders, and making it into something which is has got a kind of new take on it, a kind of life to itself.
And it's a character.
And this is a little girl that came to work with us. She would clean out the alpacas for us. We've got 4 alpacas at the studio that came by chance.
She was about an eight when she first came.
Incredibly
so
sweet.
Pocket money time, and she'd come with her mum, and they clean out the alpacas field shelter.
Yes, I think we both slightly fell in love with Isla. She was very, very sassy, confident little girl. And every time she came round, she was wearing a different hat. So hats were her thing. So this one, if you squeezed the little tassels at underneath her chin, the ears on her rabbit hat would inflate and
They'd go up and down like this.
So it was a sculpture about her and her rabbit hat. Peeking around a pole, basically, and it's a cast of her hands. Well, normally I would sculpt the hands, but for her mum and family, I thought it was just lovely to have a
real
cast of her
Yeah.
actual hands. Because now she's a young teenager, isn't she?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she's about 16, 15.
Is she?
15.
Oh, God.
And this is lovely because it captures a moment in time,
really does,
doesn't it?
does.
And a moment in her
time.
life.
Yeah.
And the joy as a child of like helping with some animals and like slightly unusual animals still in the UK. And just what a beautiful image to capture.
Yeah,
stunning.
She was such a character, wasn't she? Great.
Yeah, her mum was over the moon about that.
Oh,
She
no.
would be.
That's not every day you're having a claim sculpting your daughter. No, that's really beautiful. And I've seen it at the sculpture school, but I didn't know the kind of the story behind it. Yeah, and I think it was a bit like when we talked in the last podcast about Degas, and one of his ballerina figures had the little details about the ballerina that his sculpture was based on, Pauline. And, it just helps you to get the fuller sense of the person behind the sculpture. So it's been really lovely to hear about the little girl that inspired that sculpture, because now I can think of the story in the round kind of thing, sculpture with the context. No, that's really beautiful. This kind of leads me on to a question, Andy, that one of our listeners sent in to us. Says, if you had the choice to sculpt anyone, past or present, and it can be portraits, obviously just the face, or it can be figurative, so the whole body and a little bit of the face. This is a hard ask. So who would you like to sculpt?
I have to say that Lindsay asked me this right at the beginning. It's been going through my mind the whole podcast, and my mind is still blank. But
I said it would be doing me.
Of course, the politically correct answer is obviously Diane. But if you want to know the real answer, it would either be, I think it would be Susan Sarandon.
Okay.
Or, right, mine's gone blank.
Is it an actress?
Yes, an actress, of course. Yeah. Same age as me.
I don't know where I'm sorry, I can't.
That's the trouble with being 63.
What did she act in?
She was a child star, then she became
Jenny Agutter?
No, not Jenny Agutter, although I did love Jenny Agutter at the time. I was a tart, actually, so I loved loads.
I wasn't going to say.
Her name's been in my head the whole time until I was asked to give it, and now it's gone.
Oh dear!
Come back to it. But what I was going to say, the real answer to this is that when I have an idea in my mind of what I want to sculpt, the face becomes a really important part of it, because it's not about creating a facsimile of life. It's about finding the soul, or finding something within it that evokes an emotion. So quite often it can be bordering on spooky. So lately, there's outside our studio, I'd love to put 2 herms up. Herms are sort of upside down pillars that were very popular in the Greek and Roman period. I wanted to incorporate 2 figures outside the entrance. One was to do with birds and flight and the air, and the other was to do with water. Fish. So, and these designs are something I really want to make.
Is this just because I've not heard about this before? Are these ideas that I was going to say that have just been swimming around? Catch the pun. Have they just come to you? I don't know. Have you been inspired by something, or is this just ideas that you've had?
No, they've been there for about
ages.
They've been there for quite a while, and they've evolved.
I was not that again.
But I wanted a particular face for those. That's in a very roundabout way, and bringing it back to where we were. Yeah. And it is about the face, the face that fits the sculpture. And there's an artist in the village just down the road. And her face fitted it. And perfectly.
You just knew that immediately?
I sort of suspected it, and every time I met her, I was actually staring at her face to see whether or not it was.
We've heard this story before with the lady in Bristol. Is it the Japanese lady?
Japanese lady. I wasn't staring at her so much. I just knew immediately. Chinese lady, yeah. What is fascinating about faces is you don't have to have the face that person actually has. you can tweak it in one way or another. So you use it as the bedrock of the design, and then you can work within it to create something else. But remember Laura that used to work for us, and she became an angel called Cacabelle, not literally, but Cacabelle was
her face was on.
Yeah, it was a sculpture that I created at the time that I really wanted to do, and Cacabelle was not so good. She wasn't a good angel. She was borderline. And
she had
Laura,
a mischievous face.
Laura had a mischievous face. And so her face was perfect for that sculpture. I look at it still and I think, that's a nice composition.
Yeah.
And it's because the face fitted the thing, and it was the face that really mattered.
Right.
So rather than having somebody that I really fancied, like Susan Sarandon, I always thought she was beautiful.
Little pat on Di. Sorry, Susan, if you're listening.
Well, Di went and met her in a swimming pool.
I did in Barbados.
Yeah.
Was this in Barbados?
She swam with Susan.
Was she a good swimmer? Would she have been a
really
diving
nice
bell?
lady, actually. Really nice lady.
Cool.
We had a good chat.
Yeah. I love that when you meet celebrities and they're actually really nice.
And I met Ulrika Jonsson in the ladies' toilets in the Barbados.
Yeah, she gets all these amazing people she meets.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Speaking of sculpture, would you like to sculpt Eric Bannett's face for me? Since I've seen him in Untamed.
Why did I? I had a feeling it was going to loop round.
Yeah. I can ignore
all about
that.
Lindsay. Yeah.
That tenuous link.
Of course, darling. If you
we'll
want
have to
me
see if we can get him into the studio.
Write him a letter.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do what Keira did.
You never know, Lindsay.
We've gone full circle.
Just say I know this amazing sculptor.
Exactly.
He wants to capture you for all eternity in bronze.
Yeah, for my
just
viewing
like, just like I
only.
write my hands over.
Strokers and kisses every day.
That reminds me. When I first started sculpting, I did a portrait of my eldest son, and I called it Adonis, and I actually had lessons with Andy to learn how to do portraits properly. But I had it on exhibition at Wisley with the Surrey Sculpture Society, and this lady bought it, and she was ecstatic because she really fell in love with this sculpture. And I arranged to go round and deliver it to her house. And I said, "Oh, I'm bringing my son with me." And she said, "Oh, really? Wow!" And she was so in love with him. It was just amazing. And whilst she was there, she revealed to me that she comes down and she kisses this sculpture every morning.
Were you okay with that? It's like, it's my son.
That's my boy. But yes, portraits can be quite powerful.
I think it is, because there's something, well, it's like now I know the story of your bronze sculpture behind you, Andy. And I was just, now I know that she was like helping muck out the alpacas and things. Yeah. And like just her little rosy cheeks, which remind me of my girls when they were little. And yeah, it's lovely how sculpture connects us to humans, or like human sculpture connects us to humans. And I think maybe it is because it's that whole 3D tangible element, which you haven't got in a painting or something like that, isn't it? I think especially when you've got the whole like background story.
It is, it is unique because you can touch it, and it is that touch. You can't touch painting.
You're not allowed to touch painting.
No,
I always want to.
Well, Di does set off quite a few.
I like oil paintings. I always want to touch the brush strokes. Yeah,
I would.
Yeah. It doesn't go down very well in the Louvre.
Or the Mona Lisa. Like no one's going to miss that.
When was I did that?
Well, we both did it in the Louvre, actually. Both of us set the alarms off because I got too close to the sculptures. Well, both of us got too close. And then we were pretending that nothing had happened.
Yeah, I've done it.
We didn't touch the sculptures. We just got too close.
In the Royal Academy and in the National Gallery.
You're basically going to be blacklisted.
Well,
banned. Anything.
Yeah, banned.
Well, I think it's probably the end of our podcast. But, Di, would you like to tell us of any courses that are coming up, maybe September?
We have a figurative course in September, and which is sculpting the human body, and we have a portrait course in October. Usually the third week is the month.
Yeah,
and then there are taster days each month as well.
Perfect.
Animal and human.
And if someone wants to go on a course, what should they do?
They should go online to our website, www.thesculptureschool.co.uk, and they can book online there, or they can give us a call at the studio, which is 01837 828 79.
Perfect. And also, as always, just mention that there's accommodation that you can book on site.
There is.
And also,
getting quick, because when we've got courses on, they get booked out very fast.
Yeah, and it's beautiful accommodation, I should say. And also for any organisations, corporate hotels, different offices like solicitors' firms, medical schools, whatever. If you would like a team away day, again, get in touch with Diane Sculpture School, and we can organise a bespoke training day for you where everyone can get their hands stuck in some clay and really rebond and unite and have fun. And yeah, that's it for now. And also keep following our podcast and recommend us to others and send in your questions. And that's it for now. But have a great time until we are back with you next time.
One last stab at trying to remember the love of my life. She's got, apart from you, darling.
The other.
She's got a really strong Southern American accent.
Jodie Foster.
There we go. Jodie Foster. Hooray, that's fantastic. Yeah, if I couldn't have remembered that, I would have had to have brought it up.
She would be
podcast.
cool to sculpt. She's got amazing cheekbones. Yeah.
She's got a beautiful.
And on the
not as beautiful as you,
beautiful
darling.
Yes.
You'll be sculpted next, Keira.
I hope not.
Keira is going to be.
Keira has been sculpted.
I have.
Yeah,
she's our portrait model.
Yeah. I don't know who I am anymore.
You don't. No.
Well, I've got a few paintings lined up that I want to do.
You're going to inspire a whole new work of art.
Yeah, she's become a muse.
No.
She's lost her identity. She's just a muse.
Exactly.
No more.
Objectified again.
No more rubber. Just the muse position. No.
It'd be less strenuous.
Well, that's such a lovely way to end our podcast. So thank you to all our listeners. And
Thank you, Keira.
yeah, thank you,
for
Keira. It's
having
been so lovely to hear from you. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.